Good evening, everybody. Season finale. We don't own the rights to the music.
You know the words, Paul?
You want me to sing it? Is that what the people want? They want to hear me sing it?
I don't think we want that.
It's been a long,
There we go.
long time. Come in. All right. Change is gonna come. We gotta get some change, people. Can I get Can I get a ha? An amen, something for the choir. I know we don't own the rights to the music, but we got to make sure this change comes. So welcome tonight to season 3 finale of Vulnerable Voices. Heal Blackman, heal Blackman.
Yeah. We do love that song. That's a classic. Thank you for that, Paul. Loved your music selection today.
About time.
I know, right? It doesn't happen often. Does not. Welcome to our finale episode of season 3, Vulnerable Voices. Thank you for listening this season. We've had a blast. We've had some super great experts on the show delivering wisdom to us. We had great questions from our audience. And so we just want to give a huge shout out to everyone who's watching tonight and who has watched previously. Remember to send in your questions. We want to hear from you this. But before we jump in, I'm going to start with my intro, as I always do every Wednesday evening. But tonight I want to talk about Juneteenth because Juneteenth is important to me. So I have a history with Juneteenth, not only because I'm from the South, I'm a native Texan. I've known about Juneteenth my entire life. In fact, I decided during a Juneteenth celebration, while I was still in the womb, that I would bother my mother and force her to go to the hospital for early delivery because it was Juneteenth and she was having such a good time. I wanted to come and be a part of it. So I was actually born the next day, June 20th. So it was my Father's Day gift. He got the best gift ever.
That don't count. You was born the day afterwards.
No, it fell on the Father's Day. How you go?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
The intro last week. Now we're doing this. So anyway, yeah. It was a very, very special time. So Juneteenth is very special to me, not only because it's a celebration of us hearing the news late, right, that we were free as Black people, but also because I was born the day after. So Juneteenth, I know some people don't get it. Call me, we can talk about it. But Juneteenth is important. It's important. Let's share our history. Let's talk about why this day is special. I must admit, after I saw Biden sign on the dotted line, I shed a tear. This does not fix our current situation and our current problem, but it does acknowledge that we were lied to for an extended amount of time. We gave up free labor for 2 additional years. And I think that's something that we need to talk about and share with generations to come. Understand the relevance of Juneteenth, Black folks. Share, educate, teachers, talk to your students. They need to know Juneteenth and what is the reason behind it. So that's my intro for today, Juneteenth.
Can I ask a question?
No.
No, I got a question. I got a question for you. So
go ahead, Paul. Ask a question.
So, the whole Biden signing that, I and Dr. Peterson, feel free to chime in too. We'll introduce you formally in a second, but we're going to dive you right into this conversation.
Like only Paul does.
So, there was he signed this, but it felt like it was one of those pacifiers. Like it felt like it just gave everybody a pacifier. And if you're not woke to what was really going on, you might feel good about the pacifier. Now there's positive things about it. Yeah, it needs to be a holiday. But what about, like, I saw this meme that it said, talking about race in schools that we can't do in Texas anymore. Voting rights, that's a problem. We're going through elections and there's all kinds of voting rights issues, the reparations, police violence. But we make Juneteenth a holiday when certain laws couldn't even get, a law for violence against Asian people got passed without any without any opposition to it, but yet we got to go through all of this to get any type of law to help Black people, and he passed a holiday. Like, come on. I feel it's almost like making us like coons again. It's making us like, oh, okay, go dance for us because it's a celebration. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I'm going to jump in because I've been invited to. I'm going to jump in.
Please do.
So I had mixed feelings seeing the, hearing that the Congress or the Senate had passed it unanimously. And my mixed feelings are the history and the ability to tell our story, the ability to educate is critically important. As a therapist, telling stories are very important. And at the same time, while we are being celebrated, there are also things being taken away. Mm-hmm. So we have to celebrate and push harder. Celebrate and push harder. And so that's the tension. Because the same folk that said, yes, I'm going to vote for a holiday are the same folk that said, I'm going to make it more difficult for you to vote. So there's a tension there.
So I agree with both of you gentlemen, 100%. I think it does not fix the problem at all. I think this is only an acknowledgement, right? That's all this is an acknowledgement. But how often do we get acknowledgement, right? And then my thing is, Paul, I always say you figure out a way to use what you have and get the best out of it, right? And going back to the point of educating our youth, it is a fundamental principle in education, particularly in social studies or history, that you teach about national holidays. We have a national holiday that has now been added to the list. So why not take the opportunity to really dig deep and begin to tell the story in the history? That door right there can open so many other doors to understanding what Black folks have been through for all these hundreds of years. And to your point, Paul, you're exactly right. Texas is a problem. But now you've opened the door for us. Now my teachers have an opportunity to hone in on this because it's the law. So my thing is, it's an acknowledgement. It does not make everything okay. We still have tons of work to do. There should have been a lot more that came with it. We have representatives that voted against it, right, in the House, right? And there's a list. I think there's 14 of them. Yeah, and I do believe we should blast them. I'll share the link. But the reality is, we were acknowledged. Let's take this and spin it and utilize it to better educate the people that are coming up behind us and the people that are currently in our current situation. So that's my 2 cents.
No, I think it's a good 2 cents, as always.
It's worth more than Erica.
Well, thank you.
Well, don't tell her that now. You don't have to be nice to her.
As I won't even talk about, the real date that we should be celebrating, which was the day that the Emancipation was signed, right? But that's January 1. Too powerful of a day. The first day of the year, the new year, will never receive that. You see where I'm going? But now I can tell the story. So that's what I'm saying. It opens a door to tell our story.
I think this conversation lends into where we're going tonight. Juneteenth and has a lot to do with the history, everything before that, and the history that has caused so much trauma in the lives of everybody who is of color. But tonight we're specifically looking at the healing of Black men. So we have Dr. Alex Peterson with us. We're going to let him introduce himself and tell us who he is, what he does, and why is he here. And then we'll go into our dialogue.
Okay. Paul, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in dialogue. And I like the distinction that you make between who he is and what he does. When I graduated, my father, subsequently, every communication, still when we used to write and put something in the mail, he would send me a letter and it would be Dr. Alex Peterson. And I would say, that is what I do. It's not who I am. So I am, I'm a Black man who has been blessed with a family, has been blessed with mentors who have shaped my life, continue to give my life meaning and experience, and I'm grateful. What I do is I'm an educator, and I am a healer. I'm a psychotherapist, a licensed psychologist. I'm a researcher. I'm an associate professor at the University at Albany. And I'm an administrator. I'm the director of the doctoral program in counseling psychology. But that's,
so you're the man.
Say that again?
Oh, you are the man. He's the one. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
So it definitely, you sound like you might be kind of qualified to be on here talking with us tonight. And it was interesting is I wonder how many Black men are out there watching tonight. I wonder how many Black men are comfortable talking about healing and talking about their own trauma. And so what made you get into therapy? Like, why are you a Black man who is a therapist? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. I'm happy to tell you more about that. First of all, I believe in therapy. When I meet with new clients, I often say to them, this might surprise you, but I do this because I believe in it, because there is power in, Erica, acknowledgement, recognition, telling your story with someone else. How I got into it was an indirect route. My initial professional work was in the area of nursing. I worked as a cancer nurse for many years. Primarily worked with very serious illnesses, leukemia, lymphoma. Found myself doing a lot of counseling, but from a very uninformed place, and decided to take a counseling course, mainly because the hospital I was working at paid tuition to take a course. And that's how I ended up getting into counseling. I took a course. I felt that it was something I could do. I met my mentor, Dr. Lisa Suzuki, at New York University, who instilled a belief in me that I could pursue further study when I didn't have that belief in myself. And then I took my PhD at Columbia University Teachers College with my mentor, Dr. Robert Carter, who really shaped how I think about racial trauma, racism, and the impact it has in our lives. So a lot of my scholarship is around racial trauma, understanding the impact, what we carry within ourselves as Black individuals of African descent.
Can we stay right there for just one moment? So, and I've heard this before, but I would love your take and your insight. Is being Black a traumatic experience?
Oh, what a wonderful question, Erica.
I try not.
So partly defined, I think it depends on how you define being Black. I think being a part of the experience of being Black is a traumatic experience, because what has been done and what continues to be done to us. And I think part of our healing is to recognize that we have experienced trauma, but that's not the only piece or the only thing about being Black. That doesn't define who we are, but I do think a part of the Black experience is about being traumatized.
So why do you think Black men are so afraid, and the Black community, but why do you think Black men are so afraid of therapy? Like, where the stigmatism come from? And I'm sure you have had to deal with it. So where do you think it comes from?
So first of all, I think the stigma and the shame is real. So I'll share with you from my own experience. When I was taking my master's in counseling, now keep in mind, this is someone who is studying counseling. I had a need to reach out and access counseling myself. I received a referral from a friend who I trusted. Took me 6 months from the referral to making the call. I enter therapy, I engage therapy, I'm in the process. About 6 or 8 months later, I come out of my therapist's office, and in the waiting room is someone I know.
Oh, wow.
I am not kidding you. In that moment, I wish the ground would open up and swallow me. I was so embarrassed. And I was in the field studying.
So were you embarrassed? Is it embarrassing to need help?
No, but I think the perception, what gets attached to that, especially when, and I'm speaking from the perspective of being a Black man, when in some sense your masculinity, who you are as a man, is either challenged, degraded, made invisible. And so the reaction almost is, I don't need help. But it's at that very moment that we do need help, Erica. So I think there is some of that. The flip side, Paul, is I have Black men in my practice who engage in therapy. Mm-hmm. They are here. They are not embarrassed. They are bringing their story. They are sharing their emotion. They are being vulnerable. So I think it's not so much that people don't want to do it. Sometimes people don't know what they're going to experience. They don't know the steps to getting there. They have a misperception of what it means. And part of our role, I think, is to educate.
Because like I work with some guys who are friends as well. And, we've had conversations and dialogues, and I've seen them perpetuate cycles of trauma that continue to infringe upon their lives. So, and I've seen them and do things that, I said probably isn't the healthiest of behaviors for them, I'm not going to put anybody out there, but just the healthiest behaviors, and where, no matter what, you don't see them necessarily stopping it. And so you see the same issues coming into their lives, right? And so we've had conversations. Have you ever thought about working through those things so you can heal? And I'm not going to therapy. I'm not doing no damn therapy. Like, I take it to my grave, or I talk to the church, or this is my therapy. Or I'm gonna go to the barbershop, or but they won't go and address, because they don't want to talk to someone else about it and feel some kind of way. And I guess I kind of understand, because, as the younger me would have agreed, the older me has gone to therapy, continues to go to therapy, and is working on healing, because I need to stop those cycles. So I mean, how do we get them to understand or to see it differently?
Erica, it looks like you're about to say something, so I don't want to interrupt that thought.
No, sir. I have a thought. No, sir. You take this one, please.
So, Paul, let me first start by saying that I believe that there are many avenues towards healing. Okay, Therapy is one avenue. It's not the only avenue. So I just want to be clear. There are lots of avenues to healing, and therapy is one of those. I think, so it's interesting for me what you've just described. I have seen men that I am in therapy or are in therapy with me, I've seen them in their most vulnerable moments in the room. And then by chance, I've seen them outside. And it's as if I'm seeing a different person. Okay. So there's something getting in the way of being able to allow that vulnerability. Part of it is, I think, a false sense of what it means to be vulnerable, a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding. I also think sometimes people who say, that's not for me, don't know what it is. And so, again, part of our role is to say, actually, this is what therapy is. This is what happens in this space. This is what we do. This is what we expect you. So there's an education that has to go with that. And there's also timing. Sometimes folk aren't ready. So for me, if someone is getting some healing in the barbershop and they're not ready for therapy, that's where they need to be. Okay? But at the same time, it's not going to stop me from saying, this is good, and have you thought of that as well? Okay? Oh, sorry about that.
Erica, what do you think about what MCLB? Now this brother, he used to rhyme with Public Enemy, just so y'all know.
Okay.
Yeah, this brother, he got a little something with him. So what do you
So he says MCLB says comes from teachings in the early on, where Black people practice not sharing personal family business with outsiders, nor did they tell shameful needs of family dysfunctionalisms. And I agree with that, right? Because my male family members obviously are Black, but even male friends, that I've met throughout the years and having conversations about family and being vulnerable, I've learned that a lot of our Black families keep a lot of secrets. And it's very difficult for them to share those secrets because they do think it's shaming their family. And I think that it's a mentality and a mindset that something must be wrong with me if I have to go talk to somebody else. So I think the connotation of something wrong, if we can redefine that and talk about the need of conversation and dialogue as part of a healthy well-being rather than a part of something is wrong with me if I need to go and talk to somebody. But I think it's rooted in the Black family.
Where do you think that sense of keeping secrets, where do you think that originates? Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's a learned behavior. I think, my thing is everything goes back to our roots and our beginnings, right? So understanding that we were trained to keep secrets. We were trained to not talk about what pains us because it was irrelevant and it did not matter. It wasn't a priority. So you dealt with it and you moved on. And we still have families dealing with those same things. So that shame, those secrets. You think about slavery and racism, you think about the things that our people have had to hold on to and just deal with. We talked about it earlier, an acknowledgement for Juneteenth. Yay, great, wonderful, but it's way bigger than that, right? And so because we're only given so much, because we're told that this is the way it is because you don't have the power, we just conform to the situation. And I think that's what we've done.
I think also because it's a sign of weakness, I believe, and it's perceived as a sign of weakness, which I don't believe it to be. But sharing that information, you don't want to be perceived as weak, so you hold on to this information. You're quiet, you stuff it in, and you move forward. But according to some of the research out there, where like Elijah Anderson's Code of the Streets, he talks about weakness, that as Black men specifically can't postulate as weak in the environments that we often grow up in the urban environments, because if you at all appear as weak, you get swallowed up in survival of the fittest. So you get swallowed up, and then you get stepped on, and you get squashed. So that becomes a whole other vicious cycle that I believe continues to happen. And this whole the street mentality that came out of that goes back to, again, where did that come from? That I believe it was all a ploy. They want us to behave and act like that because we can't progress, we can't move forward. And because we can't progress and move forward, that means they've helped to put in the mindsets that hold us back. And so when do you get tired? Like, when is enough and do something different? Dr. Peterson, what's the give us like the now I'm just being nosy. So what's the craziest thing you've heard in therapy? It don't even have to be from a Black man. Somebody, I just want to hear about somebody that was just plumb out fool. like give me something crazy. Like, what's the craziest thing you done heard? I don't want no names or nothing, because I don't want you to get, I don't want you to lose your license or nothing, brother. I just want to know the craziest thing you heard. Give me something crazy.
So, well, what do you mean by crazy, Paul?
I want something wild. I want something like I want Erica's jaw to drop. I want to see her go like that. I want her to be surprised. Like, come on, give us something that we wouldn't believe.
So there's mostly nothing I have heard that you would not believe. And there's I hear there's a sadness to what you are saying, because unfortunately, as human beings, we have a great capacity to hurt each other. And so some of the craziest, and I'm going to respectfully decline your invitation.
I gotta try.
Some of the craziest things I have heard are people doing things from a place of deep, deep pain. Deep, deep pain. Not even aware of what they are doing. Not even aware. Someone, okay. You pulled me into it.
Good, there you go. That's what I'm supposed to do.
And this is not one of the craziest things. Someone leaves their apartment in New Jersey, in Manhattan, goes to New Jersey, comes back to the apartment. A day later, is trying to explain to themselves why they have 35 pairs of shoes in their apartment. They have no recollection of what has happened. Okay. The larger story is that this is someone, because of extreme trauma, experiences dissociation.
Oh, wow.
Does not know what they are doing. They are in a dissociated state, but they are getting on the train, going to the mall, coming back. When they are out of that state, what's going on?
That's dangerous.
So all right. So I got to engage here a little bit. So do you think that I could use this disassociated state at all? And how could I use this in my personal life to make things a little bit easier?
You have to get a full clinical diagnosis.
Erica, I think you'll agree with me that comment does not merit a response.
100%. Absolutely.
I was trying to learn. But that leads me to a real question. So how do you tell, or as a therapist, how can you tell whether somebody there's clinically there's mental health issues and there's trauma versus someone who is just going through the motions, or even someone who just might need therapy, but not really have mental health issues. So what's the difference? How do you tell, and what's the difference?
So again, that's a small but big question. Okay. So within our field, there are classifications of mental illness. And part of those classifications are driven by research. And so at a simple level, you would say, we know that people who are depressed behave in such and such a way. And we know that it's because it's supported by research. So there's some bodies of knowledge that allows us to classify. That even that discussion is very fraught, because part of the question is, who makes the classification? Who gives the authority to make that classification? And within the history of Black folk within the United States, at some point in time, the desire to flee slavery was diagnosed as mental illness. It actually had a classification. It was called drapetomania.
Wow.
Even the whole discussion of what constitutes mental illness has to be understood in a larger kind of social perspective. But putting that aside, so we do know something about mental illness. We know that there are classifications. And so when I meet with someone, my goal is to be able to get as much information about this person as I can that allows me to make some decisions around the distinctions between what is psychological pain, what is mental distress, what is mental illness. And clearly there's an overlap. So I'll give you an example, and tell me. I can get very chatty, so please cut me off when you need to.
No, we like chatty. Give us. That's why you're here.
You're good. Go ahead.
So some of the work I'm doing currently, some of the research is around racial trauma. Okay, I'm working with my colleague and mentor, Dr. Robert Carter, and what we are trying to do is make a distinction between racial trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. So PTSD is a psychiatric condition, a mental illness per the DSM, the Diagnosis and Statistical Manual. Okay, but what we are saying is people can experience racial trauma, which is more an emotional injury in response to a pain, and not be psychiatrically ill. So we're trying to make that distinction, okay? Because it informs how you respond. Okay? If you think of racial trauma as PTSD, then you think there's some illness within the person. If you think of racial trauma as a response to an injury, you're actually saying the illness is outside of the person. The illness is racism. The way the person is responding is trauma. Yeah, so I think these are very important distinctions and dialogues to have. But I think I might have strayed away from your original.
No, I think that's a good way. Erica, you got I thought you got something over there.
Well, I mean, I had a couple things. One, and I know we need to get to MCLB's comment as well. But so I was so glad you mentioned the DSM, because I forgot the name of it, right? So true story. When I was getting my master's, I was trying to figure out which direction to go. So I decided to go through counseling, right? I spent one semester going through counseling classes, and I decided this was not for me. I don't have what it takes to do this. But I learned about the DSM, right? And what I discovered was all of us can be diagnosed in that book. I'm telling you, something is wrong with all of us. If you focus on the there's a diagnosis for everybody and every disorder, everything you can think of. So when Paul was saying, like, what's the difference? And if you just focus, to your point, right? Like if you just focus strictly on what's scientifically a problem with your mental health, all of us are messed up.
Well, I think it's human nature. You look at us as people, and even everything you go through, and there's some things you just can't prevent. and it creates these memories, it creates these pockets of hurt, and then everybody deals with them differently, and some of us don't know how to deal with them. I know for years I was a person who put things in boxes, and because not dealing with it was easier than dealing with it, and moving forward and just finding other ways to go around it, and kind of giving into your vices and giving into other things because it made you feel better was easier than dealing with what was in the box. And so I know that was an issue for me, that it took years for me to realize that I had to open the box and kind of deal with the things that are in there.
Yeah. But I think there's power in women too, Paul.
What do you mean by that?
What I've learned is women have more power than they think they do. Especially as Black women.
There's a box that you have that is very powerful. So
powerful.
That is one of the greatest roots of all evil.
You want to get a man to go to therapy with you, ladies? Use your power.
Don't tell nobody to withhold the box, Erica. Don't tell nobody to withhold the box.
A woman,
I'm not going to co-sign that one.
Let me tell you, and I'm not even talking about withholding the box. I'm talking about let's get it together so that we can work together and communicate better and have a productive relationship and raise children who are productive members of society. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, right? I'm okay with that, but withholding the box, that's not okay.
Withholding the box unless you just refuse to participate in a therapeutic session. Then yeah, we need to hold a box for just a minute. They'll go, they get themselves together. Hold a box, sisters.
Nah, don't listen to that. That is never okay. That is never going to lead. Dr. Peterson, what do you think about that? So what about when women withhold sex as a weapon? So what do you think? Because that happens. A lot of women, if you don't do what I want you to do, you ain't getting none of this sugar. So
is that a traumatic experience?
Yeah. It is.
Well, I was like, you're going through something. Help us, guys.
Paul, what I would say to you is sex and weapon should never be mentioned in the same sentence.
Preach, Doc, preach.
Never be mentioned in the same sentence.
Box.
Amen and hallelujah. So let's see. Now, I think MCLB makes a great point here. And he basically, just to summarize what the brother's saying, is that he actually was in a pilot program while he was locked down for a little while, and it helped change his life. And it's not prevalent in all facilities as he was able to receive these services. But you think about it, mass incarceration is real. Our brothers are getting locked up, and they're not getting the help they need to get out and be successful members of society. Where do you stand on that? Because I know that's a huge issue. Where do you stand on that, Dr. Peterson?
So look, the largest sector of mental health care within the United States is within the prison system. And that's partly a function of, some folk need treatment. They end up incarcerated. So that's a comment about our system. But the prison system is the largest entity that provides mental health care. The question is, what type of care is being provided? So there's some type of care that is really about healing, repairing. There's some care that's about controlling behavior. So the only reason I'm mentioning that is that I think it's really important. I want to encourage as many brothers to go out and seek therapy. Okay? But I also want to say that there are some therapists who have no business doing therapy because they haven't done their own work, Paul. They haven't worked through their own pain. Okay? The other piece is that within mental health care, there's a desperate need for more Black therapists. So there's a legitimate history, the way we have been treated, that makes some folk hesitant. They're suspicious. Okay? And clearly the research shows that Racial similarity in pairing therapist and client increases the attractiveness of therapy. So if you have more Black therapists, you are more likely to have more Black folk engage the process. Okay. So what happens in the process is important, but just getting more folk in the process is important. And we need to do more training. We need to support more training of Black individuals to come into the field.
But what's crazy about that is, so we need that with therapy, we need that with education. So we need that in all the places that can help us change. Yeah. But we don't have our folks aren't necessarily lining up to be these things or do these things. How do we change that?
We give them opportunity, Paul. We give them, look, you're in Albany, okay? I might be getting into some dangerous territory here. You're in Albany. A young Black sister got, was it valedictorian? At Albany High.
Albany High, I saw that.
The first young Black woman to get valedictorian at Albany High in the 150-year history of Albany High School. Okay, that is not a reflection on Black folk. That's a reflection of racism. Give people opportunity, support them, financially support them to study. I am so tired being on search committees, hearing there aren't enough qualified applicants of color. There are lots of qualified applicants of color. Find them, bring them in. Mm-hmm. And again, you know, so when you see more folk, Albany High School, where my boys have gone through Albany High School, how many Black male teachers? I'm not talking about support staff, I'm talking about teachers. How many Black male teachers are at a school like Albany High School? I can count them on one hand. Mm. So who are young Black men seeing when they go to Albany High School?
That's so not you cannot be what you don't see.
Yes. Yes. So I need to pull back. I need to just let me take a minute to.
That's so real, because I mean, we deal with the same thing in education, right? And you know, I wrote that op-ed, bring sexy back to school leadership. We need to make it attractive, and the same for mental health. We have to start early in planting the seeds and helping our children. I know, Paul, you work with high school, but I work with elementary campuses all over the state. And it's just important that we talk to our children about what they can be, but even more importantly, introduce them, let them see who they can be. So I thought that's a huge point. Can I ask you a question about, you talked about bad therapists. How do you identify bad therapists? When do you know to run or not come back?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Wonderful question, Erica. So there are a couple of, let me start by sharing a personal experience. When I was doing my pre-doctoral internship at the University of Maryland in College Park, I asked a colleague to refer me to a counselor. I was doing my internship, I was finishing my dissertation. We were in the process of having our second child. There was a lot going on. I needed some support. I was referred to a therapist who came highly recommended. I had one session with her. And this is why I had one session with her. I walked in, this was a white therapist. I walked in, you know, we started the work, and it felt like she was engaging with me as if I was some chapter in a textbook. Mm. She had read some chapter about how to counsel Black men. And so I felt I was some character in a textbook. I felt like she was engaging with her perception of who I was. She wasn't engaging with me. I decided not to go back. Okay? So the reason I'm saying that is there are lots of ways you can Speak to people who have been in therapy with that person. What was your experience? If you have access to people like that, you can read reviews if that's helpful. You can also trust your own experience. If you are in therapy with someone and it doesn't feel safe, you feel that you are not being heard or understood, you can trust that experience. So there are different avenues. You can check the Office of the Professions to see if there are any complaints that have been made against the person you're about to meet. So there are lots of different avenues. I think I'm just stressing the interpersonal avenue. You want to be with someone that you feel safe, you feel heard.
So I know we're nearing time, but I want to give Dr. Peterson an opportunity to tell us. So, how do we heal our Black men? What's if you had to bake a cake and you had to put the ingredients in this recipe? What would you put in this recipe? What do they need to hear right now? So you can say whatever you want to anybody who's listening and who's going to watch it later, listen later, and make this your best cake ever. Like how, let's keep it real. What do they do? What do we do?
Paul, the first thing, and this might not sound profound, so bear with me. The first thing we do is we try every avenue we can. We try to convey the message, which is, I see you. I see who you are. And what that means is I see your pain. I see your trauma. I see your potential. I see who you are. I see who you can be. Whatever avenue, we need to communicate that message. We need to find some way to tell our young Black men, our older Black men, our brothers, I see you. You are not who you have been told you are. Whatever way we can communicate that, we need to do it. We need to do it yesterday. We need to do it today. We need to do it tomorrow. We are not who we have been told we are. We are people in pain, and we are powerful people. We have a history, much more than 400 years. We need to, any message we can, we need to convey that message. I see you. I believe you. Doesn't matter how many times you've messed up. I believe you. Find some way to communicate that message, Paul. I know that might sound simple. It might sound unscientific. It might not be profound. And we need each other. We need each other.
No, I think it's definitely profound and it's simple. Sometimes it's better, because it's something that people can give. It's something that people can do, and I think that just takes us into getting ready to close out here. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Peterson, for spending the last 45 minutes or so with us. It's been an honor and a blessing. I think you gave a lot of great insight. Very deep brother. I encourage you to keep doing the work that you're doing. I'd like to thank my co-host, Dr. Erica Johnson Allen, for a great season. I think our goal has been to provide our audience here with just interesting content, interesting people, just a thought process to continue to craft the whole person and make better leaders, make better people, and just do our part of trying to keep it interesting as well. So I'm gonna put Dr. EJA on the spot, y'all. She ain't gonna like this. She about to bug her eyes. But Dr. EJA had a conversation with me. Said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, Paul. She said in her Texas. Yeah, she said, I don't know if I got other stuff going on and I'm busy. So I'm putting her on the spot, y'all. I'm putting her on the spot. Yeah, she's shaking her head. I want this on the record. I want this on the recording. So I'm urging her that, I need this sister to stay with me here. We need to keep doing this because you know what? I believe that there's a few people out there listening, and those few people is making a difference. And that we have a great opportunity and a great platform. And, we want to grow our platform and grow it to be as large as possible. But I definitely see. They don't want to just see me, Dr. EJ, because I'm not that interesting, and I am kind of cute though. Y'all know that, but
right.
I am not that interesting, and you make it interesting with everything that you bring to the table. So I'm going to put the pressure on you and embarrass you and make you look bad if you don't come back. So we're going to get.
Paul.
Hey, you know,
I think your outro. Just stick with the script, sir.
This is my script. I planned this. I said, you know what? I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna get that sucker. She gonna stay around with me, whether she like it or not. So, you know, we want to keep doing this. We're gonna keep doing this and keep growing this audience and keep growing people. We just and she'll be back. She just talking. She ain't that busy. She ain't that busy. And if she is, she can hire somebody to help her because, you know, she got it like that. So with that being said, the outro, just look, for my Black brothers out there, you know, insanity, everybody has heard this before, but doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Like, if you want different results, you got to do something different. But part of that starts with you looking at yourself internally and realizing what you may need to do. And like Dr. Peterson said earlier, there's different types of healing, but you got to open those boxes and be willing to heal, be willing to change what's going on with you, be willing to do something different. And if you're not willing, you're going to get the same results. And those same results usually aren't advantageous. So if you want to change, then you got to look to heal. And I say a lot of healing will start with love. It's okay, Black man, to love yourself. It's okay to be in love with yourself in a healthy way, right? It's okay to love yourself so much that you're not going to continue to put yourself in harm by doing those same negative behaviors over and over. That's going to get you locked up. That's going to get you put out the house. That's going to get you to repeat the cycles that you are continuing to repeat. So I urge you to love yourself. I urge you to do something different, but it's going to start with you looking in the mirror and that self-reflection and working on your own mindset to do something different. So that is season 3. We will be back for season 4. And I'm going to convince my sister over there in crime to come back and do a season 3. I hope I don't got to get no stand-in. You know, it's going to be like the fake, like how they had the what's one of them TV shows where they had the real person and then they had the fake person that stand in, and it just ain't the same. So don't make me do that. You know, I gotta get you. I gotta get you back.
Dr. Miller.
There, I know. I'm good at what I do. So I want to thank y'all. We'll be back soon. We always take a little interlude, but you know, until then, keep loving yourself.
And let me say this: I'm going to
3
outro. It's okay to say you're not okay.
Absolutely. Amen. I hope everybody enjoyed the season. Go download us on iTunes, YouTube. It'll be on Facebook, at Vulnerable Voices, Twitter, everything. LinkedIn. It's going to be everywhere. Go watch it. Go like, subscribe, share, all those good things. Tell a friend about it. Look Dr. Peterson up if you need some help. I think the brother's busy, but you know, he'll either get you or he'll refer you to somebody. Get the help you need, my people. Till next time.